Happy Friday, everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about the ideal time to sell based on the cycle. An article goes over this, mentions a couple other analysts, and where they see Bitcoin topping out, what timeline. We also have a report from JPMorgan, putting the Bitcoin miners in a very positive light. And then we have some Gamestop news, which we'll start with. Gamestop announced their convertible note offering is now going up to $2.25 billion. And this is a $500 million increase from the initial $1.75 billion offering that was announced on Wednesday. Currently, Gamestop is holding 4,710 Bitcoin, worth about $513 million as of May 28. And when you look on the site that shows publicly traded companies, their Bitcoin holdings, I'll leave the link down below for it. It does show that they have 4,710 Bitcoin still, valued today at a hair under 500 million. Now, this article paints it in this light that because of this note offering, GameStop tanked. Well, they also reported earnings. I think that is a major factor of this and why it dropped as well. They got close to their revenue estimate, but they did slightly miss it by 20 million or so, not a big deal. But this was a 17% drop in revenue compared to the 881 million from the same time last year. And this was attributed to slowing physical game sales. Most people, if they want a game, they're going to just simply go on Steam. Or if you're already shopping on Amazon or if you're at Walmart, you're just going to go buy them there. Last time I've physically gone into a GameStop is probably years ago, but to be fair, there isn't one in my area. I think it is smart for them to kind of move into this Bitcoin treasury company. The fact is, these brick and mortar stores are very expensive to operate, and when you have companies that offer digital games online like Amazon, like Steam, these are much more popular options, and it kind of undercuts the whole brick and mortar situation. Now, to be fair, on GameStop you can buy digital copies of games, have them instantly, but the fact is Steam does essentially the same thing. And if you're using Steam as a game launcher, well, you're already there. It's a lot easier to just buy your games off of Steam. But anyways, I'm rambling on way too long. But in my opinion, as brick and mortar stores sadly become more and more obsolete, GameStop does need to do something. And I think this Bitcoin treasury option is a good move from them. I'm obviously biased because I love Bitcoin. Even with this drop, GameStop is trading at about a 50 PE ratio, a market cap of $10.2 billion with $500 million worth of Bitcoin holdings. And we even had news in their earnings of GameStop talking about getting into trading cards. This is becoming their focus, not video games apparently. And they are pretty consistently profitable, at least in recent quarters. You know, you can go multiple quarters back before you see some unprofitable quarters. Their revenues have pretty consistently declined over the last few years. Now, I didn't move this ascending line at all. I just put this a long time ago as kind of the general direction GameStop is going, and it just so happened it kind of bounced off this area. We did see a massive gap down on earnings. If GameStop breaks down from this trend line, I don't know if it's actually going to hold it or not, but if it breaks down from this trend line, it's very likely to test the $20 area. If that fails, good luck. Based on the RSI, this may be a good time for a swing trade. I almost said IRS. Typically, when you see that RSI down here at this level, we do get a very nice pop. Look at last time the RSI was oversold here. This was actually a bullish divergence. See, the RSI hit its low here and bounced, whereas the price went lower. The RSI went higher. Regardless, we did get a bounce after this oversold RSI. And again, when we saw the RSI at this level, we did get a nice pop around 10 and all the way to 40s, which is insane. I would personally watch this and see where it levels out at. I don't think it's done dropping. We might get a short-term pop. I would like to see it try to establish a level, try to consolidate a bit before potentially touching this. They're expecting some nice growth in revenue from last quarter that was literally just reported, and expecting another profitable quarter. Now, if the market cap stays here, and they end up buying all this Bitcoin they say they're going to buy, 1/5 of their market cap will be in value of Bitcoin essentially. And if GameStop actually can remain profitable, I personally don't think there's a horrible price to pay. There are companies with much higher premiums on the Bitcoin that they hold. Now, we do have some awesome news for the Bitcoin miners from JPMorgan. JPMorgan reports record profits for Bitcoin miners in Q1. I don't know what they were looking at, but the only profitable Bitcoin miner I know of for Q1 was Iron. Maybe I'm wrong, but they talk about Mara, Iron, CleanSpark here. And as for Mara, they led the pack in Bitcoin production. This is usual. They mined the most Bitcoin for the 9th consecutive quarter. They are a much larger Bitcoin miner in terms of market cap, in terms of hash rate. The size of the company is simply larger. However, of the ones that JPMorgan is watching, they also posted the highest cost per coin of 72,600. Mara is not one of the most efficient, that's for damn sure. On the profitability front, Iron was the standout performer, the only one I know of that was profitable. And for the first time, Iron earned the most gross profit among all the tracked firms. They also reported the lowest all-in cash cost per Bitcoin of 36,400. And CleanSpark, they mentioned that CleanSpark did not raise any equity. They haven't raised equity since November of 2024. That was as of their last mining update. They mentioned that, which means also that they didn't raise any equity in the first quarter. And of the 5 miners that JPMorgan tracks, only $310 million in equity was issued for Q1, which is a massive decline. That's good. From 1.3 billion in Q4. We're talking about right around a fourth of the amount of dilution. And to reiterate, CleanSpark was not one that diluted at all in Q1. JPMorgan's outlook remains bullish on select players. They maintain overweight ratings for CleanSpark, Iron, and Riot, with neutral ratings for Cypher and Mara. I too believe that the Bitcoin miners are primed for a good end of year run. We are about to enter profitability again for the group, thanks to Bitcoin's price performance during this quarter. It started the quarter in the 80,000s, and maybe we'll end the quarter right around 100,000. We have a few weeks left to end this quarter. It ends in June. And that is a stark contrast from Q1, where Bitcoin started around 100,000 and ended up in like the 70s, 80s, bringing the Bitcoin miners that hold Bitcoin an unrealized loss on their Bitcoin, whereas this quarter they will see an unrealized gain. Not to mention Bitcoin's price. Their cost to mine and the current price of Bitcoin has them looking fantastic. Now looking at Iron on the chart specifically, we are still facing this bearish divergence. Maybe the market ignores it. Maybe we see a pullback. It has been consolidating around 10. We also have an outperform with a $20 price target from Macquarie just the other day. As long as Iron can maintain itself above this 200 MA, we are soon to see this 50 cross the 200 MA. That is known as a golden cross. Last time we saw this from Iron, it was already running in anticipation of it. The golden cross flashed and we did see a drop. Shortly after, they posted a profitable quarter and it went to new prices we haven't seen before this cycle. I do think the Bitcoin miners are primed to end this year strong with profitable quarters, meaning they are accumulating more Bitcoin or cash onto their balance sheets, not burning cash. That's a big deal. Now I do want to touch on this article that goes over the prime times to sell your Bitcoin based on the cycles. Interestingly, Mags believes that there's a 500-day time window basically to perfectly plan your buys or sells. You should buy Bitcoin 500 days before the next halving is expected. And then once it's 500 days after the halving, it's time to sell. This pattern has played out since 2016, which is the second halving. Bitcoin dropped around $230 in 2015, which is 500 days before the halving, the 2016 halving. And then in late 2017 of November, which was 500 days after the halving, Bitcoin topped out, or got very close to the top, that is. Again, Bitcoin dropped to a low of 3,700 in 2018, which is 500 days before the third halving, which is in 2020, May 11, 2020. Then Bitcoin's price went to 50,000 about 500 days later in 2021. This was close to the cycle's top. Remember, Bitcoin went about $20,000 more than 50,000. So this isn't foolproof. This isn't perfect. But it does get close enough in my opinion. You buy as low as you can. You don't need to snipe it. You want to accumulate while it's low, and then you want to sell it off while it's high, right around that 500-day mark. In 2022, Bitcoin hit a low of 16,000, specifically 15.5 or so, about 500 days before the last halving, our April 2024 halving. 500 days after the halving is September 2025. This 2025 September top also aligns with other analyst predictions. Must be an echo chamber in here. Peter Brandt believes that Bitcoin's going to top out at 150K, somewhere around August to September 2025. Great minds think alike, I guess. Also, analyst eGrag predicted last October that Bitcoin cycle top would come up in mid to late 2025. And Mags, the one that was talking about this 500-day thing, didn't give a definitive target for the cycle top. However, his chart points to around $160,000. To claim 160K, Bitcoin needs to run right around 52%, half of its value added on top of its current price. Now, Bitcoin dropped quite a bit last night on this Iran and Israel war news. However, look what it did. It literally bounced at this 50 MA just like it did back here in early June. This is a fantastic sign. There is strength at the 50 MA. Someone is going in and buying it every time it hits it. We did see a lower high. Now, if you guys remember my last video, I talked about a $1 million Bitcoin price target and how unrealistic that is. A move to my price target of 150,000 is about a 38% move from here. Bitcoin can do that in a matter of a month. Will it do that in a month? Probably not. By the end of the cycle, can it do that? I do think so. I still think 150K is easily reachable for Bitcoin. Does that mean wait until 2026 if it doesn't get to 150K? No. Whether or not Bitcoin gets to 150K, my goal with my Bitcoin proxies is to sell into strength in late 2025. That could be August, that could be September, that could be October, November, December. While Bitcoin is pumping, while these Bitcoin miners are posting profitability, while there's hype in the sector, while people are suddenly bullish and asking if they should buy, that's the time to start selling. That's the time to start taking profits, selling covered calls, etc. But where's your price target for Bitcoin? Do you see it getting to 150K? Do you see it only getting to 120? Have we topped out already? Is Bitcoin going to 1 million this cycle? Are the cycles broken like some analysts think? Always interested in your thoughts. Make sure you leave them down below. Everything I go over will be in the description. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and have a good weekend.